but we're just talking about the scrutiny that LeBron has to go through because there was no social media. The man said in The Last Dance, this is why he said he retired, Molly.
Yeah.
He said he retired due to mental fatigue and burnout.
The GOAT debate remains one of the most passionate, polarizing, and never-ending conversations in all of sports. Fans argue rings, statistics, accolades, and iconic moments as if greatness can be reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet. But beneath all of that noise lies a far more important question, one that often goes unasked. What about the mental weight of greatness? What about the pressure of existing as a superstar in entirely different eras? This is where Shannon Sharpe steps in and reframes the discussion in a way few are willing to confront. His argument is not that Michael Jordan lacked pressure, nor that his greatness should be diminished. It is that the world Jordan dominated was fundamentally different from the one LeBron James has had to survive. According to Shannon, LeBron James has endured a level of scrutiny that no athlete in history, including Jordan, ever faced. Not because Jordan wasn't held accountable, but because the infrastructure to scrutinize him simply did not exist. Jordan rose in a time before social media, before algorithms dictated narratives, before 24-hour sports cycles fed on outrage and repetition. LeBron, on the other hand, has lived his entire basketball life under a microscope that never turns off. From the moment he appeared on national television as a teenager, he became a permanent headline. Every game, every quote, every facial expression, every decision, celebrated or criticized in real time by millions across the globe, that LeBron isn't just playing basketball. He's navigating a digital battlefield. Talk shows break down his legacy daily. YouTube channels dissect his body language. Twitter debates his greatness possession by possession. Instagram Reels turn single plays into viral judgment. Wins are minimized. Losses are magnified. Silence is interpreted as weakness. Confidence is framed as arrogance. There's no escape, no off switch, no moment where the noise fades. And yet, year after year, decade after decade, LeBron has continued to perform at an elite level while carrying the emotional weight of an entire sport's expectations. Shannon Sharpe's point cuts deeper than criticism versus praise. It's about psychological endurance. Jordan had media pressure, yes, columnists, television analysts, headlines in newspapers, but he never had his legacy rewritten nightly by strangers online. He never had memes questioning his greatness after a bad game. He never had millions of people replaying his failures on loop. LeBron has lived inside that reality for over 20 years. Every mistake archived. Every success challenged. And despite it all, he has remained durable, productive, and relevant at the highest level the sport has to offer. This is the mental toughness that often gets ignored in the GOAT debate. Playing basketball is one challenge. Living inside constant judgment is another entirely. Shannon Sharpe isn't asking fans to crown LeBron by default. He's asking them to acknowledge the difference in pressure, the difference in exposure, and the difference in psychological warfare that defines modern greatness. Because thriving under scrutiny this intense isn't softness, it's resilience. And when you truly account for the era, the landscape, and the relentless microscope LeBron has endured, the conversation about greatness becomes far more complex than rings and records alone.
Just talking about the scrutiny that LeBron has to go through because there was no social media.
Rich Paul's argument that social media and nonstop coverage have fundamentally altered how athletes are perceived is echoed powerfully by Shannon Sharpe in his second quote. Together, they point to a reality that many fans overlook. The internet didn't just change how we consume sports, it changed how athletes exist within them. Opinion has been democratized in a way that was completely unimaginable during Michael Jordan's era. Today, anyone with a smartphone can position themselves as a sports analyst, a general manager, or a talent evaluator. And unlike the past, those opinions no longer disappear into the void. They are amplified, rewarded, and validated through likes, shares, reposts, and comment threads, giving even the loudest or least informed voices a sense of authority. Shannon isn't complaining about this shift. He's diagnosing it. He's explaining how this constant stream of judgment reshapes the mental battlefield athletes must navigate. In the 1990s, Michael Jordan didn't have to worry about a teenager in another state going viral for breaking down his fourth-quarter shot selection. He didn't have podcasts clipping his misses into hot takes. He didn't wake up to trending topics, questioning his legacy after a bad night. There was a clear wall between public opinion and an athlete's psyche. That wall protected focus. That wall allowed failure to fade. And that wall no longer exists. For LeBron James, the noise is not external. It's inescapable. He isn't just facing defenders on the court. He's confronting millions of invisible opponents off it. Fans chasing validation. Bloggers chasing relevance. Former players chasing headlines. Podcasters chasing clout. Every game becomes a referendum. Every decision becomes a debate. Every silence becomes a narrative. Public perception is no longer a byproduct of performance. It's a parallel competition running alongside it. Shannon's deeper point is that LeBron is playing a different kind of game altogether. One where managing perception, criticism, and controversy is as mentally demanding as reading defenses or executing plays. It's not simply about basketball skill anymore. It's about surviving waves of opinion that never stop moving. Waves that don't sleep. Waves that don't forget. Jordan had to win basketball games. LeBron has to win basketball games and social media wars, all while carrying the expectations of a fan base that is more divided, more vocal, and more relentless than ever before. That reality adds a mental tax that did not exist in Jordan's time. A tax paid daily, publicly, and endlessly. And Shannon Sharpe is demanding that fans finally acknowledge this burden as part of modern greatness. Not as an excuse, not as a shield, but as context. Because when greatness is judged without understanding the environment it was forged in, the conversation will always be incomplete.
Paul is absolutely right. There was no 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365, in which we had an idea. What the internet has done is turned the common person into a head coach, into a general manager, into a scout.
One of Shannon's strongest points comes when he asks fans to imagine a world where social media existed during Michael Jordan's prime. It's a hypothetical, but it cuts straight to the heart of the debate. If Jordan dropped 50 in that era, would the response have been unanimous praise and awe? Or would timelines have filled with people saying Magic Johnson would have had 60, Larry Bird would have done it more efficiently, or that the defense was weak? Shannon's argument is that LeBron lives in a world where greatness is instantly downgraded by comparison. No moment is allowed to stand on its own. Every achievement is immediately measured against a fictional, moving standard. This is where the bar becomes unfair. For LeBron, the expectations never settle. They shift in real time. If he dominates, the question becomes why he didn't dominate more. If he wins, the conversation shifts to how someone else might have one better. That culture doesn't just critique, it erodes appreciation. It creates a no-win environment where even historic performances are treated as incomplete. Shannon is highlighting how damaging that mindset can be, because it turns excellence into obligation and greatness into a minimum requirement. Jordan, by comparison, was allowed moments of dominance without constant revision. When he scored big, it was celebrated, replayed, and mythologized. When he failed, it made headlines, but it didn't become a 72-hour viral pylon. There were no instant reaction videos, no frame-by-frame breakdowns flooding millions of screens. The criticism existed, but it had limits. LeBron has never known those limits. Even on his best nights, the narrative rarely rests. It pivots immediately to hypotheticals, comparisons, and imagined alternatives. And that's Shannon's larger point. LeBron isn't just competing with legends from the past. He's competing with millions of critics in the present, all speaking at once. The pressure isn't confined to the arena anymore. The scoreboard doesn't shut off at the final buzzer. It lives online, every minute of every day, constantly updating the judgment. In that environment, Shannon argues, the challenge isn't just physical or tactical, it's psychological. And that reality has to matter when we talk about greatness.
To have an opinion. See, Michael would score 50 points, and they never said, well, Larry would have scored 65. Magic would have gave you 8.
Shannon expands his point in the fourth section by zeroing in on how LeBron's performances, especially his triple-doubles and all-around dominance, are received by the public. Instead of being appreciated as complete basketball masterpieces, they are immediately dragged into comparison. If LeBron scores 35 with 10 rebounds and 10 assists, the reaction is rarely allowed to breathe. Almost instantly, someone brings up what Michael Jordan would have done in the same situation or how Kobe Bryant would have approached that fourth quarter. Shannon argues that this is where the debate becomes unfair and intellectually dishonest, because LeBron's real, tangible achievements are judged against imaginary performances that never happened. This creates a dangerous standard where reality is no longer enough. LeBron isn't competing against the players on the floor. He's competing against fantasy versions of legends in people's minds. The bar doesn't just stay high. It moves every time he clears it. One night it's Jordan. The next night it's Kobe. Sometimes it's both at once. And because those comparisons live in hypotheticals, LeBron can never actually win. You can't outperform something that exists only in imagination. Shannon contrasts this with Jordan's era, where greatness was allowed to exist in the moment. Jordan wasn't asked to coexist with fictional versions of Magic or Bird every time he dominated a game. When Jordan had a historic night, it belonged to him. It wasn't immediately reframed through endless what-if scenarios. His legacy was built in real time, not constantly interrupted by alternate realities. LeBron, on the other hand, rarely gets that space. His moments are hijacked almost instantly by speculation, revision, and comparison. And that's the core of Shannon's message. He's not arguing that Jordan wasn't greater or more dominant. He's arguing that the rules of engagement have fundamentally changed. Today, LeBron's excellence isn't evaluated on what actually happened. It's measured against what fans imagine could have happened if someone else were there instead. That kind of pressure doesn't just distort public perception. It slowly grinds down the human being underneath the jersey. Yet despite that, LeBron keeps performing. He keeps showing up. He keeps producing at an elite level while carrying expectations that no player before him ever had to carry. Shannon believes that resilience matters, not just in terms of legacy, but in terms of respect. Because surviving and thriving under that kind of mental weight requires a strength that doesn't always show up in box scores, but absolutely belongs in the conversation about greatness.
LeBron gets a triple-double, then they said, man, Kobe Jordan would have had 76 points. So that's what he's up against.
In this part of the conversation, Shannon Sharpe shifts the debate into something far more human and far more personal. He points out that LeBron James doesn't just face criticism occasionally or during major playoff moments. He faces it every single night, win or lose, great game or average one. There's no off switch. And that constant exposure, Shannon argues, is something Michael Jordan simply never had to endure. This isn't about diminishing Jordan's greatness or rewriting history. It's about acknowledging that the environment surrounding these two players could not be more different. Jordan played in an era where the game ended when the final buzzer sounded. Yes, there were post-game interviews. Yes, there were newspaper headlines and sports segments the next morning. But once that cycle passed, it passed. His personal life, his body language, his facial expressions, his tone in interviews were not endlessly replayed, slowed down, dissected, and psychoanalyzed across dozens of platforms. Jordan wasn't living inside a 24-hour feedback loop. LeBron is. For LeBron, the game doesn't stop when he walks off the court. In many ways, that's when the second game begins. Within minutes, clips are circulating online. Analysts on First Take and Undisputed are framing narratives. Podcasters are recording instant reactions. YouTube creators are breaking down his decisions frame by frame. Social media explodes with opinions, jokes, praise, and ridicule, all at once. Shannon is emphasizing that LeBron is not just playing basketball. He's performing under permanent surveillance, and the toll of that matters. The emotional exhaustion of knowing that every missed shot will become a meme, every loss will spark debates about legacy, and every win will be qualified with but is something earlier generations never experienced. Jordan never had to open his phone and see thousands of strangers questioning his mentality, leadership, or greatness before going to sleep. LeBron does. Night after night, season after season, Shannon is pulling back the curtain on a reality that fans often ignore because it doesn't show up on stat sheets. LeBron's burden isn't just physical wear and tear. It's psychological warfare. It's carrying the weight of expectation, criticism, and judgment in real time while still being expected to perform at the highest level the very next night. And the most remarkable part, Shannon notes, is that LeBron hasn't cracked under it. He hasn't disappeared. He hasn't folded. For over 2 decades, LeBron has lived inside the loudest, most unforgiving spotlight professional sports has ever created, and he's still standing. Shannon's point is clear. That level of sustained mental endurance is rare. It deserves recognition, not as an excuse, not as a shield from criticism, but as a reality of modern greatness that can no longer be ignored.
Of having to go out on a nightly basis, Jordan never had to worry about that. Never.
Shannon then introduces one of the most dangerous and unavoidable forces in modern sports culture, the camera phone. And this might be the most overlooked factor in the entire GOAT debate. When Shannon talks about how many relationships, reputations, and careers have been destroyed by a single tap of a screen, he's not exaggerating. He's describing a reality that defines LeBron James's entire professional life. In Jordan's era, mistakes, both on and off the court, were filtered through traditional journalism. There were editors. There were delays. There were unspoken boundaries. Not everything was instantly exposed to the world. Jordan made mistakes. Everyone knows that. But most of them stayed contained within a slower media ecosystem. Reporters chose what to publish. Stories took time to circulate. Context existed. Privacy, while limited, still had some protection. Today, that protection is gone. There is no buffer between a moment and global exposure. Every person with a smartphone is a potential broadcaster. Every private interaction carries the risk of becoming public spectacle within seconds. For LeBron, this means perfection is no longer just demanded on the basketball court. It's demanded everywhere. In restaurants, in locker rooms, at events, in casual conversations. One poorly phrased comment, one misunderstood joke, one awkward interaction. That's all it takes to ignite a viral storm that spirals out of control. Intent no longer matters. Context often gets erased. What matters is engagement, clicks, and outrage. That Shannon's point cuts deep here. LeBron isn't just playing basketball at an elite level. He's navigating a digital minefield where one misstep can dominate headlines worldwide. His career exists inside a permanent surveillance state. Every move is watched. Every expression is analyzed. Every silence is interpreted as a statement. The pressure to maintain composure, maturity, and restraint at all times is relentless. Jordan lived in a time where news traveled slower. If something happened, you might read about it the next day or hear about it on the evening news. There was time for reflection. There was space for damage control. There was room for human error. That luxury no longer exists. LeBron doesn't get a cooling off period. The reaction is instant. The judgment is immediate. The consequences are global. And Shannon takes it even further by pointing out what this really represents. The erosion of privacy for modern icons. We celebrate these athletes, profit from their images, debate their legacies endlessly, but we strip away their ability to exist as imperfect human beings. LeBron is not just a player. He is a brand, a symbol, a target, and a lightning rod. All at once. To remain great in that environment requires more than talent. It requires discipline that never shuts off, awareness that never relaxes, mental endurance that never gets the night off. Shannon isn't saying Jordan couldn't survive in this era. He's saying Jordan never had to. And that difference matters. Because thriving under constant surveillance is a skill in itself. And LeBron has been mastering it for over 20 years.
You know how many relationships, do you know how many businesses have been ruined with this? That camera phone? Ooh-wee!
Finally, Shannon Sharpe shines a light on what may be the most misunderstood ignored an uncomfortable element of the entire GOAT debate: mental health. Not toughness, not clutch gene, not rings, mental endurance. And he does it by reminding everyone of a truth that rarely gets discussed honestly. Michael Jordan himself stepped away from the game because of mental exhaustion and burnout. That fact alone forces the conversation into a different dimension. Jordan didn't leave because he couldn't play anymore. He left because the weight became too heavy. The pressure, the grind, the constant demand to be perfect, it took a toll. And that was in an era without social media, without nonstop debate shows, without viral criticism, without millions of people dissecting his every move in real time. Jordan needed distance to reset his mind, and we rightfully respect that decision. We frame it as strength, as self-awareness, as a necessary pause for a man carrying the league on his shoulders. That Shannon's question is simple, but powerful. If Jordan needed to step away under those conditions, what does it say about LeBron James? LeBron has been living under pressure since he was a teenager. He was labeled the chosen one before he ever played an NBA game. He entered the league not just with expectations, but with a prophecy attached to his name. And unlike Jordan, LeBron never got the luxury of escape. No retirements, no sabbaticals, no real mental reset. Just season after season of carrying franchises, expectations, narratives, and criticism that never stops coming. When Shannon talks about burnout, he's not excusing LeBron from critique. He's asking people to recognize the invisible war that runs parallel to the physical one. It's one thing to log heavy minutes. It's another thing to carry the psychological weight of being compared to a myth every single night of your career. Every bad game becomes a referendum. Every loss becomes a legacy argument. Every decision gets turned into a character flaw. And yet, LeBron keeps going. That's the contradiction Shannon wants exposed. We honor Jordan for stepping away to protect his mental health. But when LeBron doesn't step away, when he absorbs the pressure, endures the criticism, and continues performing at an elite level, we accuse him of chasing ghosts, padding stats, or refusing to let go. Same pressure, opposite reactions. That double standard matters. That LeBron isn't asking for sympathy. He's not asking for excuses. What Shannon is demanding is recognition. Recognition that longevity under constant scrutiny is not accidental. Recognition that surviving 2 decades in the most invasive media era in sports history requires a level of mental resilience we've never seen before. Recognition that the grind isn't just physical, it's emotional, psychological, and relentless. Jordan stepped away to preserve himself, and that choice is respected. LeBron stayed, endured, adapted, and kept delivering while the noise only got louder. That doesn't diminish Jordan, but it does add weight to LeBron's story. And Shannon's message is clear. If mental strength is part of greatness, and it should be, then LeBron's endurance under pressure is not a footnote. It's a defining chapter.
He said in The Last Dance, this is why he said he retired, Molly.
Yeah.
He said he retired due to mental fatigue and burnout.
At the heart of Shannon Sharpe's message is not a campaign to hand LeBron James the GOAT crown. It's not about rankings, debates, or forcing a conclusion. It's a plea for understanding. Understanding the era, understanding the context, and most importantly, understanding the battlefield LeBron James has been fighting on for his entire career. Shannon is asking fans to look beyond rings and stat sheets and to acknowledge that greatness does not exist in a vacuum. It exists within an environment, and LeBron's environment has been unlike anything basketball has ever seen. Michael Jordan never had to live in a world of instant opinion. He didn't wake up to trending hashtags questioning his legacy. He didn't finish a game and immediately face thousands of hot takes dissecting every decision he made in the final minutes. LeBron does. Every night, every season, for over 2 decades. And despite that constant noise, despite the relentless criticism, despite the impossible expectations placed on his shoulders before he ever became an adult, LeBron continues to show up. He continues to break records people once thought were untouchable. He continues to carry franchises, elevate teammates, and redefine what longevity and excellence look like in the modern NBA. Comparing LeBron and Jordan without acknowledging these fundamental differences is a disservice to both legends, but especially to LeBron. Because while Jordan carried the pressure of winning, LeBron carries the pressure of judgment. From camera phones catching every off-court moment to toxic takes spreading faster than facts, LeBron has existed in an era where perfection is demanded and humanity is rarely allowed. One mistake becomes a headline. One loss becomes a legacy debate. One misstep becomes a permanent stain in the eyes of critics who were never satisfied to begin with. Jordan had the luxury of mystique. There were gaps between the performances and the opinions. Time for greatness to breathe. LeBron was never given that space. His greatness has unfolded in broad daylight, under constant surveillance, with no margin for error and no escape from the spotlight. Every chapter of his career has been written live, edited in real time, and judged endlessly by millions who have never faced that level of pressure themselves. And that reality alone deserves a new kind of respect. Shannon Sharpe isn't asking fans to rewrite history or tear down Michael Jordan's legacy. He's asking for perspective. He's asking people to recognize that greatness evolves, that pressure evolves, and that the definition of mental toughness must evolve with it. Because enduring excellence under constant attack, while never being allowed to disappear, is its own form of greatness. Shannon isn't demanding your agreement. He's demanding your awareness. And if you truly listen to what he's saying, if you honestly consider the weight LeBron has carried, you might not change who you call the greatest, but you may change how you understand what greatness really costs.